You're listening to Welcome to Eloma, a podcast for highly ambitious dreamers who get shit done. I'm your host, Kiley Peters. This is a space where we talk about how to hire in a post-pandemic world. In 2021, we started to learn about the Great Resignation, which was, I'm sure, every employer's greatest nightmare. And now here we are entering into Q4 of 2022. And I honestly don't know of any business that isn't having trouble finding and retaining talent. And we're going to get into the DEI conversation and how that plays a role in talent recruiting, et cetera, today. But overall, like, the labor shortage is just insane. And I know every business owner I know is having trouble finding the right talent, keeping the right talent, and building their business in that way. And we also know that this can be really costly. So often we know that hiring the wrong person can cost a business a lot, but especially small business owners, you hire the wrong person. And sometimes, man, that hire can be really devastating. And oftentimes owners tend to play a big role. Small business owners tend to play a big role in hiring, which is also questionable because that's not necessarily our skill set. And I am guilty of this myself. So I'm really excited to jump into this conversation today with today's guest, Morgan Phelps. Morgan is the CEO and founder of Colorful Connections, a diversity recruiting and retention firm. Morgan has transformed her career from journalism and PR into founding Colorful Connections in 2019. We're going to learn more about this journey. I'm super excited. Welcome to Eloma, Morgan.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So excited. It's been so long since we've actually connected. So I'm so excited that we get to chat now.
Yeah, it's been a while.
For all the listeners out there, Morgan, just to kind of jump into things. So you started your career in journalism and PR and transformed into Colorful Connections, which some might put into the HR category. What led you into that transition?
That's a good question. And I get it a lot. Ultimately, the switch happened because I was trying to solve what I saw as a communication problem. The communication problem being a disconnect of supply and demand, quite frankly. Okay. So demand of, we want to hire more diverse professionals. Mm-hmm. And then supply of, networking. I know that diverse professionals are out there, but there was a disconnect. So at the time that I started thinking of Colorful Connections, I was working in PR, mm-hmm. Chicago, at Edelman. And, I was working in a very small, specialized team, 12 of us, entire country, all this, like great work. But historically, throughout my journey in communications, I was always one of few people of color, especially on the client side, especially in this field. And the question just kept bothering me. And I think I was on year three of attending this conference. And, you have these panels, and the panels just have the same conversation. And the same conversation was about needing to transform the industry. And they're not out there. And, what's going on? So after a while, there's a part of me, too, that just gets frustrated talking about the same problem over and over and over again. So year three of this panel, right? And of course, several conversations in between, just on a daily basis, internally with my company, was proactive and doing work internally in terms of how to create a culture shift, building, right? All of this building year after year after year. I just got frustrated about this. And I was running an organization for women of color in my industry at the time. So even more frustration where, like, hundreds of women that I'm leading, I have access to, who want, jobs in these places that all these agencies and companies are saying they're trying to find, this pool of people. So you're trying to find these people. Okay, they're here trying to get a job at your companies. Something is not happening. So that's where I saw it as a basic disconnect from a communication level. And as I started digging into that said, as the idea, right, as any entrepreneur or business owner knows, the idea that you start out with is not really how it all ends.
Wait, what? Things change?
What is that? At the time, I thought it would be a partnership program, to just, connect professionals with hiring managers or leaders at different companies. And I did a couple of programs and pilots in Chicago, and they went really well, but it wasn't addressing still the problem of how do I help these women of color get hired, right? And at the time, I felt that, leadership obligation too. How do I, am privileged, right? How do I help them get jobs? It still wasn't addressing that problem. The communication problem was still there. So I started doing more, a lot of deep diving and research and speaking one-on-one with talent acquisition directors, HR directors, people, leaders who left companies who quit for reasons that are DEI related, so trying to understand from their perspective, truly, now that we don't work together, what happened and why from your perspective is this problem continuously happening of even if you find diverse professionals, they're not staying, we're not staying. Why is that not happening? The growth part of it. So once I was able to start digging more into it, it built out the business plan for what Colorful Connections is today. And just my personal passion and frustration, there was no way that I could back away from it. So in a sense, I see it as like the ultimate communications project, I guess, I've ever worked on.
I love it.
Although it goes pretty deep.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it has lots of legs and yes, goes deep. But I love what you're saying because, and I think this is true for a lot of entrepreneurs, is you saw a problem, one that you were deeply connected to, and you wanted to try to create a solution to fix it. Right? Like, I think, and at the like highest level, I think that that's what we all are trying to do. And so I love that story because, so many people would probably look at like PR to HR, like what happened, but that makes so much sense. And I think that, it's people's journey as like, well, stuff came up and things changed and I wanted to address a problem that I saw. So I love that. So you are knee deep in this space of talent recruiting and retention, hiring, etc. Now, it's always been
so much of it has to do with communication, like, pretty broad, but that truly is a consistent thread.
The communication. Yes. Okay. So let's dive into that a little bit. I feel like life right now is like pre-COVID, COVID, post-COVID, like everyone's trying to figure out like, where are we? But talk to me a little bit about how you've seen this transform. So maybe specifically the communication part, like before COVID happened, as people are trying to hire the right talent, et cetera, what was the communication blocker and how has that transformed over the last couple of years, if at all?
So that's a good question. And also, I guess I'm going to need to build on that a bit because we're talking about pre-COVID, right? But there was a lot that happened during 2020, including the tragic murder of George Floyd.
Absolutely.
Added so much in terms of considerations, just the same in terms of how employers show up, responsibility for hiring diverse talent, what that means, supporting people of color, professionals of color, employees of color, and really doing it for the right reasons. So I think all of this, in addition to COVID, has significantly changed how expectations on the job seeker side and how you go about recruiting and sourcing from a passive perspective, and even when you're, needing to fill a role immediately. So I guess before, it was your typical process, right? I mean, there was a lot that was expedited in terms of the virtual, and remote work situation.
Well, that's a whole hurdle as well. Yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of conversations before it was, more on the employer's terms, and I know that right now we're in a job seeker market where that's not necessarily the case. But again, the other factors and things that just happened throughout life with racial and social unrest and justice, and again, COVID too, and just the reality as well in terms of how we've been living throughout these years. Priorities and values are different for an individual. So when you're looking at the hiring process, I hope I'm answering your question, but I know I'm answering a different way.
This is good.
So when we're looking at the hiring process, there's just so much more that matters than just getting a paycheck, quite frankly. And I think it's important to be cognizant of that. If not, you're going to have trouble finding the right people. You're going to have problems with retention. And just expectations for really for the right job seeker or on the job seeker side, there's just going to be a disconnect with it. What does a company represent? What are their values? Job seekers right now are very much prioritizing, working for an organization that cares about what they care about and stands up for issues that support them and will allow them the flexibility to be who they are and enjoy life, be with their family. So I think a lot in terms of how we live our days, expectations of work-life balance or harmony, whatever, language you want to use, all of that has 100% shifted. And I know that there are certain industries or companies, it might be a little bit more difficult, but all in all, I see a lot of employers who are embracing that for the good and trying to see what their new workforce and work culture and structure looks like. So some, I won't say all of them, majority are, doing that, which I think is important. And some are very rigid and this is how we've always done it. And this is traditional and, this is how we operate and go ahead. That's for you and good luck. And, see how it goes. But I mean, as business owners, entrepreneurs, you have to evolve. Even the way that we're working today isn't the same that it was 30 years ago. Like you have to evolve with the times. You have to evolve. Your people are the backbone of your company. So if you're not willing to flex with that, it's your company can only grow so much. You can only scale so much and you'll only be as effective as your talent, as your people.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think that's the perfect answer because, as we talk about building businesses and entrepreneurship, et cetera, I 100% agree with you. People are what matters most. I say that all the time. And they really are. And so what I'm hearing you say is, we've always talked about this work-life balance or blend or harmony or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
But I think a lot of it has been a lot of talk, especially in this country, right? We work really hard to a fault. And now what I've experienced and what I've heard other people experience is these last couple of years have been challenging on so many levels. And it's really made people start to evaluate what matters most to them. And like you touched on, like families, values, societal, economic justice, like everything. It's like what really matters to us. And that's where I'm going to spend my time and energy. And so, so what I'm just to summarize, it sounds like businesses need to be more intentional or just at least be really aware of how they're presenting themselves and walk the walk, especially when it's coming to finding the right talent and retaining the right talent.
Absolutely. You are 100% right. And I would simply add to that, I'm a yes and person, add to that and doing it in an authentic way. And I think the authenticity is what really helps and make sure that it's thick and that it's for the right reasons. You're hiring, the right people for the right reasons who will align with your mission and your vision and your values. And all of the work that you're doing, just not, to, bring in, accounts and, just the business, right? Just to make money, but the impact that you're giving back to society, all of that, to do it organically and authentically in the right way, especially when you're looking at attracting talent, and the right talent in the right places for the right roles that really align with them. 100% that's important. That's why I said that communication ultimately is at the core of a lot of this. So even when you're looking at, the attract part of it, so colorful connections, I use an analogy that, for a three-legged stool with the work that we do. Because if you have a three-legged stool, right, 3 legs, we're missing a leg, the whole thing topples over. It's not stable. So for us to create an inclusive and diverse team, right, that stool, you need 3 pillars: attract, retain, and grow that inclusive and diverse team. If you're missing one of those legs, it's going to be unstable.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at it from a communication perspective, we'll have clients that might come in and say, hey, we need help attracting, right? One of the pillars, we need to attract talent. But if you are having problems retaining talent, especially for diverse candidates, and I'll explain why I keep doing that. But if you're having trouble with that second pillar, that's probably hurting your attraction efforts for brand awareness, even from, brand reputation perspective.
Sure.
So your communication, even from an employer branding perspective, is probably, is where you might need to start in the first place. So if you're not able to retain employees because word of mouth spreads, and as you're looking at, a place that you want to work at, especially if you're a person of color or someone who is in a historically marginalized community, or just an underrepresented, underestimated professional, you're looking at a company, you're seeing their website, and you're like, okay, I'm going to talk to a couple people and see what it's like to work there. And if the feedback isn't good, that's a no, right? You go on Glassdoor, you see some things, no. And even just looking at the company, depending on the website and what they communicate, you're going to make your decision there, And then in terms of your team and how you show up when you go out, to talk to candidates, again, communication. So will I be valued there? We talked about a lot too, in terms of a CSR perspective. There's just so much, the depth of just how important it is to connect and communicate in all aspects. It's just critical in so many different ways, I guess, in the hiring and retention aspect.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And I love that. I love your perspective on this, that that's largely a communication issue, or that's a huge component of it, because I feel like most people don't speak about that in this way, but it makes a lot of sense. And I love the 3 legs of the stool. So for listeners out there who are struggling with attracting, retaining, growing their business, growing and talent, et cetera, what advice would you have to them? Maybe even small businesses or larger businesses, if it changes at all. But what advice would you have to them right now as they're trying to tackle this and figure out how to do it the right way, for the right reasons, find the right talent, communicate the right thing?
How to find talent? Is
like what advice would you sorry, that was a lot.
No, I'm just trying to make sure, because I could,
Yeah, I would just say, what advice would you give? So if I'm a business owner and I'm like, Morgan, I'm struggling here, what should I be doing that I'm not doing right now? Like, what do I need to be doing?
A couple things. First, I would say to diversify your talent pool. So most recruiters and hiring teams, or just whoever is in a hiring position, LinkedIn and Indeed, that's where they go. Okay. 9 times out of 10, that's everyone we talk to, that's where we go. Okay. Kind of hard to look for diverse team members, and, those who, it's hard to expand your pool when those are your main sources. So I would say look outside of the box. But even as you're trying to figure out, okay, so what does that mean? Look outside of the box, or look at different pools, and, like, how do I even know where to start? Yeah. I would say first to back up. And oftentimes when you're looking at what the role that you need to fill, especially if it's something that you need to fill right now, 2 things. Oftentimes when we fill out a job, or, update a job description or create one, it's to fill, especially if it's for an immediate need, it's to fill the immediate needs now, right? So you're just looking at, okay, what do I need to get done? But you're not looking at 6 months from now or a year from now. And 6 months from now, research has, proven and shown that the responsibilities in your day-to-day look very different 6 months from now versus the day that you're hired. So I would look for someone who has certain types of traits versus just, filling and checking off the box of, like, here are the things I specifically need done, right? Yes, those are important, but look ahead knowing that will change. And of course, as you're, a growing company, an early stage company, a startup, just an entrepreneur, you need to think ahead. Your business should be growing and shifting every 4 to 6 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you need someone who can also help and grow with you and possesses those skills. So I would say that that's a part of it. So diversifying your pool, that I'll admit I did blank because I did have something else to add, but if it comes up, then I'll share it.
Here, I'll give you a moment to think. When you're trying to find somebody, because I love that, I totally agree with that. Thinking about their traits versus just the responsibilities. What would you say is something that would be helpful? Like is a personality test helpful in the hiring process, or how do you hire for those traits? Like, any advice on how to figure out if somebody has the traits that you're looking for?
You can do assessments, and there are also bias-free assessments and tools that are out there to help in, making sure that you're going about it in, as much of an inclusive, process as possible.
Mm-hmm.
From that perspective, I would also say when you're looking at the traits, look at what you need in order to get the job done. Do you need someone who is, yes, flexible, or are negotiation skills truly a core part of this role, regardless of what you'll be doing? So I think it first starts with understanding what success looks like for the position that you're hiring for, and having everything come from that. And the thought that I kind of blanked on ties into this, so I did think of it. Thank you. Another thing, if you've had someone in the role before and you need, they're leaving for whatever reason and you need to staff up again, if you're just pulling out that same job description again, sometimes just updating it, we're just working off of the same thing that's just like what's been done, right?
Yeah.
And you're oftentimes, and there's a risk of looking for someone, even if it's not intentional, who fills that task position. So if I had, hey, Kylie's on my team, she's, leaving. Oh no, we loved her. We have to bring someone else on board. Okay, let's find a new her, right? That's sameness. That's looking for someone to fill the same position. And that's where you also fall into that risk and the habit of hiring over and over again, just based on a type. So you're not able to diversify your mind. You're not able to think more inclusively, and you're not able to think forward looking in terms of your goals. What goals do you have to meet this year? What role does this position play in that? Where they need, and what do they need to do to be successful? So all of those components, when you're thinking of it simply from a success metric, right, or perspective, helps, to think a little bit more open-minded. Be more open-minded, and then also think bigger in terms of a scope for the type of person who might be a qualified candidate for the role versus what to be the norm. Oh, I need a salesperson. I'm just going to look for someone who has been a salesperson. And granted, you might find someone sales experience, but think outside of the box in terms of, okay, what does a successful salesperson look like? Okay. And also depending on the level, right, that you need, some other factors will come in there. But think differently in terms of the work and what success looks like. And also think about what, might that person enjoy doing and what aligns with them. And I think that'll help as well, because I'm a big champion. I think this works well on our team, to find people who really enjoy doing the work. They're passionate about their role, right? They're passionate about the work that's involved in their role, because they're also more likely to be creative and willing, to pivot or be proactive and, just put their all into the work as well 6 months from now or a year from now, or you get a curveball or a problem. But hey, I love doing X, Y, Z. I don't see it as a chore. I'm naturally curious. I'm naturally passionate. This is what I feel fulfilled doing. And this is for me. That's the person that you want to hire. Don't just go off of, again, thinking of our field. What does your portfolio look like? If it doesn't, if this isn't in your portfolio, no dice. If this isn't in your resume, if you haven't had this type of experience, if you haven't worked in an agency, no, this is in our job description for a reason. It's also preventing you from finding other talent.
Yeah.
And also looking in different places, attracting diverse talent.
I love that. And I want to talk about that for 1 second. I just want to add that I think that's a great call out, because I've also heard so many stories about people who have found most amazing team members who have very non-traditional backgrounds, but to your point, like they have the traits. And I think your point of like feeling fulfilled doing the work, like also that's such a gift that an employer could give to somebody, to like
Yeah.
give them the opportunity to love the work they do. I want to
Mm-hmm.
circle back though, because for anybody who's just listening, you keep saying diverse talent with like the air quotes, and you wanted
Yeah.
to explain that a little bit. So tell me a little bit about what you mean when you
Let me
air
do
quote
that.
diverse talent.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming back to that. So,
Hmm.
oftentimes, when we say diversity nowadays, folks typically think of Black and brown, right? So, and sometimes others might think of BIPOC. So, just think of people of color in general. And clients, and we've had some clients, come to us, or prospective clients that were asking if we could support them, with the search to find diverse talent, who would say, I need to find a Black man. And I would say,
Mm,
oh, that's very specific now. It's
yeah.
like, oh, well, why a Black man, right? Why not, a Latino, or, Asian dude, like a woman? Hello, a Black woman. Like,
Yeah.
why a Black man? What's behind this? And the response will be, well, I just know what my team, I know what I want my team to look like.
Mm.
So, I guess my point,
Very
also backing up
cringeworthy.
to, yeah, a little cringeworthy, maybe some concerns from a compliance perspective, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So we approach diversity a bit different, so we have a strategy when we work with clients to help identify what does diversity look like for your team, because diversity
Mm,
shows up very differently.
sure.
So my husband also runs a company, and his company is majority Black, so diversity, and also it's a family run company. So diversity for
Mm,
them looks very different. And if we're really trying to take advantage of the benefits of diversity for growing a business and the economic value, right? The drivers
yeah.
of it outperform, your competitors and market leaders. And, if you're trying to really embrace diversity for the strategic value, in addition to doing, the work for the right reasons, I believe in that. But I also know that at the end of the day, business is business.
Hmm.
But and DEI is not, it's not a correlation to success, it's causation. But if you're
Mm,
only looking at it from a singular perspective of race, and race being, your indicator of diversity, you're missing a lot. And you're also missing a lot in terms of strategic value that that person and that candidate can bring to a role and the purpose, right?
yeah.
So you're also risking with that hiring someone and them feeling tokenized, or just saying,
Mm,
okay, well, I got, quota. This is just what I'm looking for. And then we're, talking about that retention concern,
yep.
right? So again, it's just really important when we think about it in terms of, okay, let's look at, there's a position that needs to be filled. Let's look at, again, what does success look like? What are the traits that are needed? What is the experience that's truly needed to fulfill the role and achieve success, not just right now, but thinking ahead. And then
Hmm.
also let's look at what we have on our team, the skills that are strong in our team, where are we lacking? And then
Yeah.
also start looking at other components, whether it's, oh, we all went to similar colleges. That is an easy place to start, just for an example,
Mm,
right? So
okay.
if you're looking at that and you're saying, oh my goodness, we all come from the same circles and, same colleges, I think we can start there maybe, right?
Yeah.
So let's just say, okay, we're oversaturated and homogenous in this area. Let's not be homogenous, right?
Right.
Where, as we're looking to attract a new person for our team to be successful in this role and also contribute to our department or our company, what do you need? And think about it from that perspective. And you're able to think a bit differently in terms of what diversity truly looks like for your team.
Mm,
And again, it helps to improve or increase the chance that once you do hire someone, that you're again valuing them, and you're asking, you're truly appreciating that because sometimes the hiring manager is different from the immediate manager and teammates who
sure.
work with the new employee. But there's a higher chance of, okay, you won't be dismissed, during a meeting. You won't, just say, okay, fine, great, you're hired. And then I'm just going to, ignore, or you'll just sit there and, just, or not include them even just in social interactions or whatnot. There's just a higher chance in general of someone bringing their all and bringing their lived experiences to the work. So,
which I would imagine.
So we mean a lot more than just that. The spectrum of diversity and different dimensions of diversity.
Well, I love that point too, because nobody wants to be hired. It's just like being picked last in gym class. Like nobody wants to get picked because they had to fill a role, right? You want to get picked because of who you are and the skills you bring and the experience you bring and the whole potential you bring.
And the passion, exactly.
Yeah.
And the mission alignment. And it's just a good match. Your company, it feels right to me. The work
exactly.
that I would be doing, I'm really excited about that.
Exactly.
And you value what I would bring to the table. I like that. That sounds good. And we have had candidates who have made it to the final interview round and they've turned down the position, just having second thoughts and just saying, no, I don't want to be the only person of color on this team. Sometimes, it's just, how do I feel? Will I be appreciated and valued? So it's there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah. But I think at the end of the day, it goes back to people and communication, like you pointed out.
How are you writing your job descriptions and your job posts? And I mean, it starts as an ongoing thing.
Yeah. And really rooting into whole humans. And,
You're right. Exactly.
The whole thing, like everything that they are. Morgan, I want to be respectful of your time, but before we go, I've got 2 more questions for you.
Sure.
Well, maybe 3. We'll see. I wanted to ask you, because I think you got some exciting things going on. What are you working on right now?
We are rolling out, thank you for the question, we're rolling out some new learning tracks. So
okay, cool.
With the services that we offer fall into those 3 pillars that I mentioned. Attract, we do recruiting, and we also do training for recruiting teams. The retention part of it is a more heavily concentrated workshops and trainings. And then the third for grow are like assessments, organization assessments, individual assessments, because it all kind of works together.
Yeah,
you
for sure.
can't just focus on one area, you need support elsewhere, especially for the work that we do. So what we're doing is that all of our services are offered as needed, right? And we tailor everything, we customize everything. But what I started noticing is that clients who are on their DI journey, as long as you're on the journey, great. We'll meet you where you are and help to support you. But it was a little tricky just helping clients to understand, based on their path, how we could support them with their services. So we're starting to roll out some learning tracks, which is really exciting. So for instance, if there's a client who just needs to know, where do I start? I have this newly formed DI committee, or, my company is really starting, I want to, make a commitment, an authentic commitment to DEI, but I don't know what that means. I don't know where to start. We have a where to begin learning track,
Nice.
So we'll offer light assessments, a couple workshops that go with it, but we help to equip the team with basic foundational direction on, there's a lot to figure out, but let's figure out how to get you headed in that right direction support. So we have, where do I begin? Or if you're, committed and you have some direction and your team is focused on just building awareness, we have a learning track focused on awareness or actionizing your commitment to, awareness is, I want to understand more about DEI and how does this apply to the workplace? How does this apply to my role? And how can I help the entire company understand that and be empathetic and move along and also communicate better with each other and with clients? Like, how can we do better with that, right? That's awareness, actionizing. Okay, I got the basics. We know what that looks like. And how do we become a part of the solution? So we have a learning track for that, where we offer our services that are related, and help to achieve that goal. There's that. Recruiting, we have a specific learning track for recruiting for teams that, just want to do the work themselves, but want to understand how to do so from an inclusive perspective. It's not the traditional diversity recruiting certification that you get online. You just, learn Boolean and things like that. No, we teach you the strategy We teach you how to look differently. We focus on mindset shifts because it doesn't matter if you just find people, if you're still looking at and evaluating their experience and resumes the same way, the same old way, right?
Sure.
So we focus more intensely with that. So we have a few of those that we're rolling out for our learning tracks. I'm really excited about that.
That is awesome. That's great. And then that gives you other opportunities to kind of start to engage with more companies and give them different touch points. So that's exciting. Very exciting. All right, lady, my last question for you is, what is your greatest insight or discovery about life and entrepreneurship?
Oh, good question. And I think it's that we're just graduating problems, right? Every problem that we tackle, that's great. Woohoo! We we did that, and we're ready for the next one. But it just goes another step up, So every time we address a problem or a challenge personally in our personal lives or in the business space, it's only to help us get to that next problem. And once we figure that out, then we graduate to the next problem. And I think that's life as well. So we take on as much as we can handle, but as we continue, dealing with whatever stressful situation or problem, headache, whatever, take a moment and smell the roses because you're about to roll up your sleeves and take on that next problem. Yeah. So, I would say that, get used to having problems and looking at them differently in terms of learning opportunities and just from a growth perspective. I'm growing into a different problem.
Yeah. No, I love that.
So those are good problems, right? That's maybe where that's
growth. It would be weird if we don't grow. That would be its own problem.
Right.
I love that because I say that often too, especially talking to like young entrepreneurs. People are always like, oh, does it get easier? It's like, no, it doesn't get easier. You just get better.
You just get better.
The problems
and you
will
have
get harder.
to deal with exactly. Yeah. And you have to deal with the problem that you're having right now in order to grow and deal with the new level of problem. Because that problem, the new level problem, is just building on that. It's just like, oh, okay, great. You took off that little bite. Okay, take off another chunk.
I love it. Morgan, thank you so much for being a guest today. I really appreciate it. For all of our listeners who want to learn more about you and Colorful Connections, what is the best way to get in touch with you?
They can go to our website, colorfulconnections.com. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. So for all listeners, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please take a moment to leave a review wherever you're listening. I also want to give a shout out. We are starting quarterly workshops beginning this November. Check them out at rixworkshops.com. That's rixworkshops.com. And thank you again, Morgan. It's been such a pleasure.
You. Nice catching up. Thank you.
To continue learning how to better build your business and make your vision a reality, subscribe to the Welcome to Eloma email list at welcometoeloma.com.